This is the 2023 Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Carbon. This is the X series, so it's going to be one of their thinner options. So this is a 14-inch super portable laptop. Despite being a 14-inch laptop, it weighs very, very little, and it's actually quite thin, you can see there. So it's going to be relatively rugged all in. It's going to have the same design principles as all the ThinkPads, but it's also going to be very, very light and very, very portable. There are 5 different CPUs you can get in this machine here. You can get a 1335U, a 45U, a 55U, which is what I have here, a 65U, and then you can get the 1370p, which the U models will have a different ratio of performance and efficiency cores, with more efficiency cores, fewer performance cores, which is leaning more towards battery life, portability. You're still going to get a lot of usability and performance, but it's leaning more towards the longevity of the battery. The 1370p is going to be performance focused. It should still have decent battery life, but that's going to be the one that's easily going to have the most performance out of this SKU right here. There are 2 different 1200p options. There's a touch and a non-touch. This is actually the touch model here. So despite being a non-glossy screen, a lot of times touchscreens are glossy. This is actually a non-glossy screen, and it's still touch, which is actually quite nice because you're going to get less fingerprints evident on the screen, and you're not going to get crazy amounts of glare. There is a 2.2K screen as well if you want higher resolution. It only goes up to 300 nits. It does still have good colors at 100% sRGB, but the brightness is slightly lower. The OLED offering is by far the most premium. It's 100% DCI-P. So you're going to get the highest resolution out of that OLED screen, and then it's also going to have the best color range as well with that 100% DCI-P instead of the 100% sRGB on all the other screens. So it's your typical ThinkPad X1 Carbon, very, very sleek design there. Very, very thin laptop, you can see there. So the top is the soft touch material that's more common on the higher end ThinkPads. It's not plasticky at all. It actually doesn't show fingerprints. I mean, I'm not a fingerprinty guy, but there's like no fingerprints on that. That's interesting. Apparently it's resistant to fingerprints. Bottom, same idea, nice, very soft material there. So very premium feeling. You can see there, you get your 2 speaker grills on the bottom, bit of a butt there to raise it up, and dual fan, you can see there, intake. So you'll get your air in there, and then it's going to exhaust out the back here. You can't really see it, but there's an exhaust under there. It's like too dark to actually see on camera, but there's an exhaust there. So on the left side for ports here, you see we have 2 USB-C, both Thunderbolt, so you're going to be able to obviously use Thunderbolt bandwidth out of them. That's very good. So one will take power in, and then the other one you can use for power out, display, docks, that kind of thing. You have a legacy USB-A port there, very good. You can actually see how thin the laptop is based on the HDMI. It's basically an HDMI port thick, so very, very, very thin. Right side, another legacy port, so you get a USB-A again. You get your Kensington lock slot and a headphone microphone combo jack. So 2 USB-A on this laptop and 2 USB-C. Inside the laptop, you can see here, obviously very premium. This is, like I said, Lenovo's X series, which is their premium laptop, premium lineup. So you get that same soft touch material inside here. Very, very nice to touch. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty fingerprint resistant. I mean, if you had like straight grease on your fingers and you touched it, it would be gross. But speakers look like they're at the bottom here. You can see there, this is just more decorative, and then that there. Fingerprint scanner, you can see right there. Side here, this is how I usually do it. Often there's clips on the front. These ones tend to go in this way, and the clips on the front are often hooks. We'll see, but that's why I typically go through the back first. Okay, very, very easy to get the bottom off there. And you can see, yeah, they're clip style. So metal bottom, obviously, it's a metal chassis. A little bit of a heatsink there. It's actually covered to probably prevent conductivity. And here's a look inside the laptop. Dual down firing speakers there. Down, it's good that they're firing down because then you'll get a little reverberation. That'll produce more bass there. And then you do have your up firing tweeters here. So quad speaker setup, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bass down, tweeters up, perfect. The battery is weirdly designed. It has like a hole in the middle. I guess for just structure to keep it nice and thin. And then there's, yeah, that's strange. There's this little like bracket there to prevent this from pushing on your battery all the time. And so it's not that upgradable. Obviously you can see the RAM is soldered to the motherboard. There's no RAM slots, SODIMM slots. This is a super thin laptop, so I would not expect there to be SODIMM slots in it. Wi-Fi is not upgradable. You can see that there's a Wi-Fi chip there soldered, one of those little guys there. However, it is Intel. It's Intel AX210, so it's Wi-Fi 6. Good Wi-Fi. You're not going to need to upgrade that in anywhere in the remote near future, so that's fine. You can upgrade the NVMe here. It's a 2280 size with a heatsink over top of it. So you actually get this very large copper heatsink here. Obviously single heat pipe with some extra copper over there to cool some VRMs or something like that, and dual small fan setup rather than one bigger fan setup, which should actually push a decent amount of air. I suspect it to run very quiet despite that. Again, it's not a super hot chip. Okay, I'm going to start turning it up a bit. Pretty loud. Okay, so it definitely gets loud. We'll give it that one thing. So it's a very loud laptop. It can produce a lot of volume. It's quite clear. Unlike, like a MacBook or something like that, it doesn't have the very low end bass. MacBooks and, some gaming laptops and certain laptops, even their, Idiotben Slim and Yoga Slim, have a little bit more low end bass where you can really feel the rumble. Okay, we'll listen to my brother's video here. And
episode with the Harry Potter parody, and I can go on, but I think this level's pretty neat. I do find it kind of funny that the game will have you believe that Springfield is being victimized by flesh-eating zombies, but you can approach the zombies walking around. They're not dangerous at all. Guys, I don't know if there's a zombie apocalypse going on here. I think these people might just be dressed up as zombies, which would make sense since it's Halloween.
So you can see here it's nice and crisp. It's 1080p, it's not going to be hyper crisp or anything like that, but it's not the biggest screen either. I find that, 14 inches is kind of the limit of where I'd want to go with 1080p, 1200p. Beyond that, I typically recommend stepping up. It's actually quite crisp. The colors are very vivid here. My recording device is not going to do it justice. It's actually much brighter in person and more vivid. Reds are typically where I find bad screens lack. So you can see that actually looks quite nice. We'll bring that down. You can see there's absolutely no bloom around the screen at all, no IPS bloom at all. And the reflectivity is actually good too. So that's black screen. I have a huge window. You can see there. That's a gigantic window with blazing sunlight coming into it. And it's actually handling reflections very well. So you can see there, if you're working in a reflective environment, which you probably are if you're using a business style laptop, the mateness of the screen is actually quite nice. Very, very bright, vibrant blues there, vibrant greens there, vibrant yellows. It has good color accuracy, has good color range with that 100% sRGB, good color accuracy because Lenovo, actually calibrates their screens, and nice blacks as well, and good reflection handling. So overall, it's quite a good screen, something you would want to use in a professional environment. You're not going to have glare all over the screen there. And if you're doing things like photo editing or video editing, because you have that sRGB and the calibration, you can have some confidence that it's actually going to produce the results that you want. Okay, now I'll do my typing test here. You can see it's the standard ThinkPad layout where you have the function and control keys swapped. So if you're not used to that, it does take a little getting used to. I get used to it once I use it for a bit because I'll come down here to hit control, but I'm actually hitting function. One interesting thing is you can use function lock. So right now I have these set up as volume down, volume up, brightness down, brightness up. If you hit function escape, it locks it the other way so that now these work as function buttons instead. So depending on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, for most people you probably want to inverse, so you could just do quick volume up, mutes and that kind of thing. So you can see here, it is your standard ThinkPad layout with the ThinkPad style keys. These are the low profile key caps, which are common on the X series. You don't get, nowadays the X series are so thin, you don't get the full traditional ThinkPad keycap. Let's say the ThinkPad keyboards are normally about that thick. The keycap itself is normally about that thick. On the X series, you tend to get them a little bit thinner. Not a big deal. It just typically means that, the actual keycap is thinner, so it's not pushing up more, meaning the whole laptop can become thin. However, the key travel is still pretty good. You can see there. You get a decent amount of key travel there. They do sit up. They are raised above the keyboard still, despite the fact that they're smaller keycap. So it doesn't feel super shallow by any means. Yep, so I can rip out essays on a ThinkPad keyboard. I'm used to them as well. I've typed on them for years. So despite the fact that I'm reaching awkwardly around a camera and I can't actually see what I'm doing, I'm actually looking through the camera, typing on it is actually very nice. And then you get your typical Lenovo trackpad and Trackpoint there. So not the biggest trackpad in the world. There's a reason why, because you have dedicated keys up there. It's a very soft touch texture. This is a soft touch texture. This is a soft touch texture. Feels really nice to actually use it. Very, very smooth and appealing to the finger, I guess I would say. So you typically don't want really, really noisy keyboard. The keyboard is pretty quiet. The actual trackpad is quiet as well, which again, if you're in a professional environment, you don't want to drive people nuts with a super noisy typing experience. So that's good. And then of course you get the Trackpoint nib. So if you're not used to using a Trackpoint nib, basically you have dedicated buttons. So you have left click, right click, and scroll. So you can use this to scroll up and down on websites. So if I come over here, hold the center button, you can scroll up and down with that. And then you can click with your left, click with your right. Most of the time, if I'm just navigating, day-to-day navigating, I actually use the trackpad because, gestures work fine, zoom in, zoom out, whatever. But, if you're typing, that's the difference here. If I'm typing an essay and, then I need to use my trackpad, I guess I could reach with my thumb, which is weird. But typically, you're going to remove your hand here, start moving your mouse around, then you're going to come back and resume typing. However, if you're using the Trackpoint, you don't even have to remove your hands. You can literally move your finger over and go like that. Keep your other fingers where they should be. Move around like that, navigate, do whatever you want to do here, move that up and down, scroll through your essay, and then when you want to resume, you just bring your hands back, right? Okay, just running some Cinebench here on actually high performance. There we go, the fans have ramped up to their max speed. 42 dB, which is nothing, it's very quiet. My sound floor is really bad. I don't have like an acoustic sound chamber like Gamers Next or something like that. So, I typically sit at 35 to 37 even. Let's check the temperatures there. It looks like it did throttle probably for a couple of seconds because, if we reset this, the average is actually quite low. Current 63, 37, 64, 64. Average is very, very, very low. So typically what happens is you run Cinebench, you hit the button, it immediately throttles because it dumps a ton of power into the CPU, and then the CPU gets really hot really fast, and then the system goes, oh, wait a second, I need to make my fans go. So then it cools down. Getting 65, basically, to 70 on the core temps here, despite the fact that we're running Cinebench, basically full bore. So here's a look at the included SSD. So you can see here it's running quite fast. We're getting high-end Gen 4 speed, 6,500 megabytes a second read, 4,300 write. So very, very fast SSD included. And then here's a look at the battery life. So you can see here it's actually getting really good battery life. We're getting 8 hours or so. We're just at about 75% brightness here, just on better battery mode, not saver. And the charge rate here, discharge rate here is just about 7 watts. That's actually very, very good. And then here I'm running some 1080p 60 YouTube, and we're only losing 11 or 12 watts when watching some 1080p video. So you're gonna get around 4 or 5 hours depending on what you're doing with this laptop here. Okay, and here's a look at the camera built in. It looks like it has pretty good polling rate and the resolution looks pretty good. I don't have the easiest scene here. I have light coming right down on my face here and a lot of light behind me and to the side there, but this side is quite dark and it looks like it's sorting it out pretty good. No real issues there. Overall looks pretty good there, even when I have a really bright scene in the background there. Despite the fact that Intel isn't known for its graphics performance, you can still play games on it. So this is Metal Gear Solid 5. And we're playing natively here, 1200p, so no lowering of the resolution. We're on medium and low mix, so the game actually looks pretty good and running natively. And look at the frames here. I mean, we're getting almost 60 FPS here. We're getting just shy of 60 FPS. The GPU looks like it's not actually being maxed out, so we may be able to actually turn up some of the settings here a little bit. So now we're actually on high medium mix here. You can see now the GPU is being maxed out finally, and we're at high medium mix. Lots of post-processing, lots of lighting effects, which will make it look a little bit more realistic here. And we're actually still pulling off 45 FPS or so in the lows, and it's actually going up to 60 at times. You can see right here we're at 60. Okay, and here's a brand new title. This is Jagged Alliance 3, obviously not the most demanding title here. So this is Jagged Alliance 3, which is a brand new title. You can see here we're playing at 800p, so I just decreased the resolution a bit. We're on low and native. Low, and there's no scaling or anything like that. You can see here, I mean, really good performance. This is a top-down tactical type game, so you can certainly play at 35, 40 FPS. You're not going to have any issues like that. It's just not that type of game. And you can see here, I mean, very, very playable. Looks totally fine, but you can play some games on it, especially strategy games, top-down games, these type of things, or older 3D games. You're gonna have no problem.